This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
This is Faith Under Fire, the Thursday news feature from Family Life News. Back in November, we talked with Beth Serio of a group called Do No Harm Medicine. They had just released a database after a 4-year study of insurance records on the number of children who were receiving some form of hormone treatment or gender transformation surgery. We will talk about the big issues about what gender transition is all about for children and families. But first of all, Beth, welcome back. Let's have you review for us a little bit about what that research was all about.
Nationally, we found about 14,000 children have undergone some type of sex change treatment. So we're defining that as any type of hormonal interventions, cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers, and then also surgical interventions. And all of these are minors who were between the ages of 0 and 17 and a half at the time of the treatment. So we compiled this database through a comprehensive analysis of insurance claims data, who had a diagnosis code of gender dysphoria or something related to that.
Two issues really seem to come to the forefront. One of those is parental notification. The way it's being promoted in schools, in the story times at libraries, in a lot of the media and the social media pushes, parents may not be notified that their children are going through counseling, going through these medical treatments.
What we're seeing and reporting on here on these numbers and our Stop the Harm database, the numbers of children who are undergoing the medical treatment to transition. And then in a way, that's kind of the last stop, on the pipeline that many children find themselves on with this transgender ideology being so captivating, unfortunately, to this young generation. It's such a multifaceted issue, and we've certainly heard, lots of stories along the lines of what you have mentioned, in the schools and parents not being notified and the children being socially transitioned against their will.
One other issue is the question of everybody who's listening to us knows how hard adolescence is of figuring out who we are and dealing with changes in our body. And then you throw in the transgender mix into that, and somebody who is uncertain of their body or uncertain of their social standing says, oh, well, maybe I could fix it by switching to the other gender. One of the senior fellows in your organization, Do No Harm, Chloe Cole, we had her personal story that was part of a Capitol Hill testimony. Talk with us a little bit about the information about folks who, okay, I had a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, and so therefore I'm going to change my body the rest of my life. The consequences that should be talked about in a long counseling program before a medical intervention happens.
I think we're at the tip of the iceberg right now, and we're just beginning to see the data coming out. And I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to really be faced with the longer-term consequences of what we've done to these children across our country. This ideology preys on adolescents who are, many of them, in that prepubescent or early puberty years where, like you say, nobody is comfortable with their body at that time. That's a very challenging part of life, that all of us have had to go through. We need to help our children through that, not help them explore options to not go through puberty or to go through it and come out a different gender when they're already feeling maybe discomfort in their biological sex and they're feeling discomfort with their body. Maybe they're not feeling accepted by their peers. They encounter the transgender movement and it seems to them, to their child brains, that it offers a lot of solutions all at once. They can just become a different gender. If you don't like your body, well, that's because you're not supposed to be a girl or you're not supposed to be a boy. You can just be the opposite gender. And that might seem like it solves some very, very short-term problems, but we cannot even begin to know what long-term problems we have introduced to them. These procedures and treatments are billed as being reversible, no major side effects. We know that that is completely not true. It's simply dishonest to say that a child can go on cross-sex hormones and then just choose to stop it in 5 years and not encounter any ramifications from that choice. Not to mention these surgical interventions that can render a child completely sterilized. When they're 12 or 13, they just simply cannot make that type of choice for the long term. And it's obviously up to the adults in their life and certainly the medical establishment, the doctors and nurses that they're interacting with, to speak truth to them about the situation and help them understand that this will not help. If anything, it will almost certainly create larger and more problematic mental health issues for them.
We know a lot about mental health issues for adolescents, and we're very concerned, and especially the young people who are trying to sort all this out. Depression is a big issue, but I don't know that there's truth in advertising of how depressing so many people still feel after they've gone through these body changes or the hormonal treatments.
Absolutely. So the early data that we have really seems to suggest that children who go through these types of treatments come out with increased rates of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, which really flies in the face of the lie that we are so often told, that parents are told. The classic, would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter? And they're made to believe that they do not allow their child to go through these treatments, that the child will kill themselves, And what we're seeing is that that's the exact opposite might be true. Eventually the child is going to realize that that this was not an answer to their problems. But in the meantime, we would have caused a whole lot more problems for them by allowing them to, start this futile task of it becoming another gender.
We're talking with Beth Serio. I do want to ask you about the database.
Check out our database online. It's the stoptheharmdatabase.com. And there's just a wealth of information here. So you can see the national data that I mentioned at the beginning, but you can also look at your individual state, and you can even look at the numbers at institutions within your state. Take a look and see if your local children's hospital, what they're up to. It's a good thing to know, especially for parents who might be bringing their children to these facilities for medical care.
Beth Serio directs outreach for an organization called Do No Harm. We will link to that Stop the Harm database on our Family Life podcast page. I'm Greg Gillespie, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.